The weight of tomorrow. Zara Mitchell stared at the holographic display floating above her workstation, her tired eyes struggling to focus on the endless streams of data cascading down the translucent screen. The soft blue glow illuminated her face in the dimly lit research laboratory of Phoenix Tech Industries, one of Earth's most prestigious technology corporations. At 28, she had dedicated 5 years of her life to this company, working as a junior research assistant in their advanced materials division. The clock in the corner of her display showed 11:47 p.m. She was once again the last person in the lab. Her colleagues had long since gone home to their families, their comfortable lives, their predictable routines. But Zara couldn't afford such luxuries. Every extra hour meant additional credits in her account, credits that barely covered her sick mother's medical treatments. Back in the outer colonies, her fingers trembled slightly as she saved her work and prepared to shut down her station. The tremor wasn't from fatigue, though exhaustion had become her constant companion. It was from the decision that had been weighing on her mind for weeks. Growing heavier each day like a stone in her chest, she pulled up her personal messages and found the one she'd been dreading. The medical center on Colony 7 had sent another payment notice. Her mother's treatment for the rare neurological condition was becoming more expensive, and the standard insurance coverage had run out months ago. The experimental therapy that offered hope was available only through private facilities that demanded payment up front. A daughter's love. Zara's mind drifted to her last video call with her mother 3 days ago. Despite the illness, her mother had smiled brightly, asking about Zara's work, her life in the capital city of New Geneva. She never complained about the pain or the treatments, never mentioned the financial burden. But Zara could see the worry lines deepening around her mother's eyes. The way she hesitated before speaking, as if choosing her words carefully to avoid causing concern. "My brilliant daughter," her mother had said, her voice slightly slurred. "From the medication, working for the famous Phoenix Tech Industries. Your father would be so proud."
Her father.
Zara touched the small pendant around her neck, a simple piece of metal her father had crafted before he died in the mining accident when she was 15. He had been a dreamer, always talking about the day when humans would work alongside the mysterious alien species that had been detected at the edge of their solar system. He never lived to see the first contact protocols established, never saw the tentative trade agreements that now brought prosperity to some and left others behind. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, working for a company at the forefront of human advancement, developing materials that would be used in the first official diplomatic missions to alien worlds. Yet she couldn't afford to save her own mother's life. The impossible. Zara opened her desk drawer and pulled out a letter she had written and rewritten dozens of times. Her resignation letter. The paper felt heavy in her hands, heavier than it should have been. She had calculated every number, explored every option. Even with the modest raise she might receive next year, even working every available overtime shift, she would never earn enough to cover her mother's medical expenses. But there was another option. Meridian Corporation, a smaller research firm, based in the industrial sector, had offered her a position. The work would be less prestigious, the laboratories outdated compared to Phoenix Tech's state-of-the-art facilities. But the salary was 40% higher, and they offered a signing bonus that would cover her mother's next round of treatments. The choice should have been simple, but it wasn't. Phoenix Tech wasn't just her employer. It had become her second home. She had contributed to breakthrough discoveries here, worked alongside some of the brightest minds in human space. More importantly, she had access to classified research about the alien species they called the ethereals, beings of incredible intelligence who had begun reaching out to humanity through complex mathematical communications, whispers of the unknown. Ethereals remained largely mysterious, their technology far beyond human understanding. What little was known came from the intercepted communications and the few artifacts that had been recovered from deep space probes. They seemed to be evaluating humanity, determining whether Earth was ready for formal contact. Zara's work involved analyzing alien materials, trying to understand their composition and properties. It was the kind of work she had dreamed of since childhood, the kind of research that could change the future of human civilization. Leaving Phoenix Tech would mean abandoning not just a job, but her life's passion. She stood up from her workstation and walked to the massive window that overlooked New Geneva's skyline. The city stretched out beneath her, a tapestry of lights and movement that never quite stopped. Flying vehicles moved between towering structures, their paths coordinated by advanced artificial intelligence systems. In the distance, she could see the spaceport where the massive diplomatic vessels were being constructed. Ships designed for humanity's first official journey to alien space. The final decisions. Arau pressed her palm against the cool window and made her decision. Family came. First, it had to. Her mother had sacrificed everything to give her an education, working multiple jobs on a harsh colonial world to pay for Zara's transport to Earth and her university fees. Now it was her turn to make sacrifices. She returned to her desk and carefully folded the resignation letter, slipping it into an envelope. Tomorrow morning, she would walk into the office of Damien Cross, the enigmatic CEO of Phoenix Tech Industries, and hand in her notice. She'd never actually met Cross in person. Despite working for his company for 5 years, he was a figure of legend around the office, a brilliant young billionaire who had inherited the company at 30 and transformed it into the leading force in human technological advancement. The stories about him were contradictory and intriguing. Some said he was cold and calculating, a man who saw people as nothing more than resources to be optimized. Others claimed he was a visionary, someone who genuinely cared about humanity's future among the stars. A few whispered that he had mysterious connections to the Alien Contact Project, knowledge that went beyond what was publicly acknowledged. A night of reflection as Zara gathered her belongings and prepared to leave the laboratory. She allowed herself one last look around. The workstation where she had spent countless hours, the equipment she had learned to operate with precision, the colleagues' desks that would soon belong to someone else. She was walking away from everything she had built, for everything she had worked for. The journey home to her small apartment took her through the quiet streets of New Geneva's research district. The buildings here were sleek and modern, designed to house the city's intellectual elite, but Zara's apartment was in a different sector, a modest place she could barely afford even with her current salary. As she rode the automated transport, she thought about the conversation she would have with Cross in the morning. She would be professional, grateful for the opportunities Phoenix Tech had provided, and firm in her decision. She wouldn't mention her personal circumstances. Men like Damien Cross dealt in facts and figures, not sob stories about sick mothers and impossible choices. The transport arrived at her building, and Zara made her way to her apartment on the 15th floor. The space was small but clean, furnished with the basic necessities and a few personal items that reminded her of home. On the table next to her bed was a photo of her parents on their wedding day, young and hopeful, standing in front of the small house where she had grown up. Tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow, she would walk away from her dreams and embrace a different future. As she prepared for bed, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at a crossroads that would define not just her life, but possibly something much larger than herself. Little did she know that Damien Cross had been watching her work for months, that her resignation would trigger a chain of events that would thrust her into the center of humanity's greatest adventure. The morning would bring more than just the end of her employment at Phoenix Tech Industries. It would bring a proposal so shocking, so impossible, that it would change the course of her destiny among the stars. The CEO's domain the next morning arrived with the gray light of dawn filtering through New Geneva's atmospheric processors. Zara dressed carefully in her best professional outfit, a navy blue suit that she had purchased for her original job interview 5 years ago. The resignation letter felt like it was burning a hole in her briefcase as she made her way through the city's transport system toward Phoenix Tech Industries. The corporate headquarters rose like a crystalline spire into the morning sky, its surface reflecting the early sunlight in brilliant cascades of light. Ouch. Zara had walked through these halls thousands of times, but today everything felt different. Today she was saying goodbye. She took the executive elevator to the 50th floor, a level she had never visited before. The receptionist, an elegant woman with silver hair and kind eyes, looked up as she approached. "I'm Zara Mitchell from the Research Division," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to see Mr. Cross. It's regarding my employment status." The receptionist's fingers danced across a holographic interface. "He's expecting you, Miss Mitchell. Please, go right." In expecting her, Zara felt a chill run down her spine. She hadn't made an appointment. The man behind the legend, the doors to Damien Cross's office, slid open silently, revealing a space that was both magnificent and somehow intimate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while the walls displayed rotating holographic images of distant galaxies and alien artifacts. But what captured Zara's attention immediately was the man standing with his back to her, silhouetted against the morning light. Damien Cross turned as she entered, and Zara found herself looking into the most intense pair of green eyes she had ever seen. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair that was perfectly styled despite the early hour. His suit was clearly custom-made, fitting his athletic frame with precision that spoke of wealth beyond imagination. But it was his presence that struck her most forcefully, an aura of power and intelligence that seemed to fill the room. "Miss Mitchell," he said, his voice deep and cultured. "Please have a seat." Zara moved toward one of the leather chairs, positioned in front of his massive desk, but Cross gestured instead toward a more intimate seating area near the windows. 2 comfortable chairs faced each other across a low table, creating an atmosphere more suitable for conversation than confrontation. "I understand you have something to discuss with me," Cross said as he settled into his chair. His movements were economical, graceful, like those of a predator, completely comfortable in his environment. Zara opened her briefcase and withdrew the resignation letter, her hands steadier than she had expected. "Mr. Cross, I've come to tender my resignation from Phoenix Tech Industries. I've very much enjoyed my time here, but I have personal circumstances that require me to seek other opportunities." Cross took the letter but didn't open it. Instead, he set it aside and leaned back in his chair, studying her with those penetrating green eyes. "Personal circumstances," he repeated. "Mother's medical expenses on Colony 7. The experimental neurological treatments that aren't covered by standard insurance. The offer from Meridian Corporation that includes a substantial signing bonus." Secrets revealed. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. "How do you know about that?" "I make it my business to know about my valuable employees," Cross replied calmly, "especially those who have been working on classified projects involving alien technology. Did you think your contributions to our ethereal research program had gone unnoticed?" "I'm just a junior research assistant," Zara protested. "I analyze material samples and input data, nothing more." Cross smiled, and the expression transformed, his entire face making him appear younger and somehow more approachable. "Miss Mitchell, in the past 18 months, your insights have led to 3 major breakthroughs in our understanding of ethereal technology. Your pattern recognition abilities are exceptional, and your intuitive leaps have impressed our senior researchers. You are far from just anything." He stood and moved to his desk, retrieving a tablet that he brought back to their seating area. "I have a proposition for you, one that will solve your financial difficulties permanently while allowing you to continue your research at Phoenix Tech." Zara's heart began to race. "What kind of proposition?" Cross activated the tablet, and a holographic document appeared in the air between them. "A marriage contract. Duration 2 years. Compensation 5 million credits upon completion, plus full medical coverage for your mother at the finest facilities in human space." An impossible offer. For several seconds, Zara simply stared at him, certain she had misunderstood. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" Marriage, Cross repeated matter-of-factly. "A legal union between us, documented and official. In 3 weeks, I will be leading humanity's first diplomatic mission to the ethereal homeworld. The ethereals place great importance on bonded pairs in their society. A married human delegate carries significantly more weight in their culture than a single one." Zara's mind reeled. "You want me to marry you so you can impress aliens?" "Want you to enter into a mutually beneficial arrangement?" Cross corrected. "The ethereals have been studying our species for years. They've intercepted our communications, analyzed our social structures, observed our behaviors. They understand that human pair bonding represents stability, commitment, and emotional maturity. A diplomat who has successfully formed such a bond is viewed as more trustworthy, more capable of long-term thinking. He gestured to the holographic contract floating between them. The marriage would be real in legal terms, but private in personal ones. You would accompany me on the diplomatic mission as my wife and scientific advisor. Your insights into ethereal technology would be invaluable during negotiations. The stakes revealed, Zara leaned forward, studying the contract details. The numbers were staggering. 5 million credits would not only cover her mother's treatments, but provide security for the rest of their lives. Why me? Surely there are other women who would be more suitable. Socialites, diplomats, people who understand your world, because they're not you, Cross said simply. They don't have your scientific mind or your genuine passion for discovery. The ethereals are remarkably good at detecting deception and artifice. They would see through a fabricated relationship immediately. But they would also recognize the authentic intellectual connection that exists between us. We barely know each other, Zara protested. We've been working together for 5 years, Cross countered. I've read every report you've written, reviewed every analysis you've submitted. I know that you dream of understanding the ethereals, that you see them not as threats or opportunities but as fellow seekers of knowledge. That perspective is exactly what humanity needs in these negotiations. Cross stood and moved to the window, gazing out at the city below. The ethereals are deciding whether to offer humanity membership in their galactic confederation. The wrong impression could set our species back by centuries. The right approach could open up possibilities we can barely imagine. A moment of truth. Zara studied the man before her, trying to reconcile the cold corporate legend with the passionate advocate for human advancement she was seeing now. And after the mission? After the 2 years? The marriage ends amicably. Go our separate ways. You'll have the financial security to pursue whatever research interests you most, anywhere in human space. And humanity will hopefully have taken its first steps toward a greater destiny. The weight of the decision pressed down on Zara like a physical force. Everything she had ever wanted seemed to be within reach, the chance to be part of First Contact, to help shape humanity's future among the stars, to save her mother's life. But the price was unlike anything she had ever imagined. I need time to think, she said finally. Cross nodded and returned to his seat. Of course. But I need an answer by tomorrow morning. The diplomatic mission launches in 3 weeks, and if you agree, we'll need every day to prepare for the wedding and your role in the negotiations. As Zara gathered her things, Cross spoke again. Miss Mitchell, I want you to understand something. This arrangement would be based on mutual respect and shared goals. I would never ask you to compromise your integrity or pretend to feelings that don't exist. What I'm offering is a partnership in the truest sense of the word. Zara paused at the door, looking back at the man who had just turned her world upside down. Why do you care so much about this mission, Mr. Cross? What drives someone who already has everything to risk it all on alien diplomacy? For the first time since she had entered his office, Cross seemed to hesitate, because I believe that humanity's greatest achievements come not from conquering others, but from learning to understand them. Ethereals could teach us things that would revolutionize our entire civilization, but only if we approach them as equals, as beings worthy of respect and partnership. The weight of destiny. As Zara left Phoenix Tech Industries that afternoon, her mind was spinning with possibilities and implications. The resignation letter remained unsubmitted, replaced instead by a contract that could change not just her life, but the future of human civilization. She spent the evening researching everything she could find about the ethereals. It's about the diplomatic mission, about Damien Cross himself. The more she learned, the more she realized that this was about far more than money or career advancement. This was about being part of humanity's next great leap into the unknown. Her mother called that night, as she did every few days. Her voice was weaker than before, the effects of the disease progressing despite the treatments. How was work today, darling? Her mother asked. Zara looked out her apartment window at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, alien beings were waiting to make contact with humanity. Somewhere among those stars lay answers to questions that had fascinated humans since they first looked up at the night sky. It was interesting, Mom. Very interesting. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Zara made her decision. Tomorrow morning, she would walk back into Damien Cross's office and accept his impossible proposal. She would become the wife of a billionaire, travel to alien worlds, and help determine the future of human civilization. The scared young woman from Colony 7 was about to become part of the greatest adventure in human history. The wedding of convenience 3 weeks later, Zara stood in the bridal suite of New Geneva's most exclusive hotel, staring at her reflection in an antique mirror that had probably cost more than her former apartment. The wedding dress was a masterpiece of elegant simplicity, crafted from fabric that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. But despite the luxury surrounding her, she felt like an actress preparing for the most challenging role of her life. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of preparation. Legal documents, medical examinations, intensive briefings on ethereal culture, and customs. She had been fitted for the specialized diplomatic uniform she would wear during the mission, studied alien etiquette protocols, and undergone psychological evaluations to ensure she could handle the stress of first contact. Through it all, Damien had been professional, courteous, and increasingly enigmatic. Their interactions had the careful choreography of two people learning to dance together without stepping on each other's feet. He had insisted she move into his penthouse apartment to maintain the appearance of an engaged couple, but he had given her complete privacy and space. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Damien entered, and Zara's breath caught in her throat. She had grown accustomed to seeing him in business suits, but today he wore formal diplomatic attire at midnight. Blue uniform with subtle silver accents that complemented his dark hair and green eyes. He looked every inch the man who would represent humanity among the stars. "You look beautiful," he said, and something in his tone made her believe he meant it. "Thank you," she replied, smoothing the fabric of her dress nervously. "Are you ready for this?" "The question is, are you?" He moved closer, his expression serious. "Once we say those vows, there's no going back. Not just from the marriage, but from everything it represents. You'll be stepping into a world of interstellar diplomacy, alien politics, and responsibilities that could affect billions of people." The ceremony of beginnings, the wedding, took place in a small chapel within the hotel, attended only by a few witnesses required by law and Damien's personal attorney. The ceremony was brief but elegant, conducted by a magistrate who had been sworn to secrecy about the guest list. As they exchanged rings and vows, Zara found herself studying Damien's face, searching for any sign of what he was truly thinking. When the magistrate pronounced them husband and wife, Damien leaned in to kiss her. It was meant to be ceremonial, brief, professional. Instead, the moment their lips met, something electric passed between them. The kiss lasted longer than necessary, and when they separated, both were breathing slightly harder than they had been moments before. "Mrs. Cross," Damien said softly, and hearing her new name sent an unexpected thrill through her. "Mr. Cross," she replied, managing a smile that felt surprisingly genuine. The reception was held in Damien's penthouse, high above the city lights. The guest list was small, but impressive senior government officials, leaders of the space program, and several of Zara's former colleagues from Phoenix Tech who had been cleared to know about the marriage. The food was exquisite. The champagne was older than Zara herself, and the conversation revolved around the upcoming diplomatic mission. As the evening progressed, Zara found herself genuinely enjoying the celebration. Damien was an attentive husband, never leaving her side for long, always ensuring she was comfortable and included in conversations. When they danced together on the terrace under the stars, she began to understand why people believed their marriage was real. The journey begins 2 days after the wedding. They boarded the diplomatic vessel New Horizons, a ship that represented the pinnacle of human engineering and technology. The journey to the ethereal homeworld would take 6 weeks, during which Zara would serve as both Damien's wife and his scientific advisor. The ship was magnificent. equipped with the most advanced propulsion systems humanity had ever built. Zara's quarters were adjacent to Damien's, connected by a private common area that served as their diplomatic suite. The arrangement was intimate enough to maintain their cover while providing the privacy they both needed. During the first week of the journey, they settled into a routine that felt surprisingly natural. Mornings were spent reviewing briefing materials and preparing for their diplomatic responsibilities. Afternoons were dedicated to scientific analysis of the data they had been provided about ethereal technology and culture. Evenings were their own time, often spent talking about everything from childhood memories to philosophical questions about humanity's place in the universe. Zara discovered that Damien was far more complex than his public image suggested. He was brilliant, certainly, but also deeply thoughtful and genuinely committed to the welfare of humanity. He spoke passionately about the potential benefits of alien contact, but also worried about the risks of cultural contamination or technological dependence. "Sometimes I wonder if we're moving too fast," he confided one evening as they shared dinner in their private dining area. "Humanity has a history of letting advancement outpace wisdom, but we also have a history of rising to meet challenges," Zara replied. "Our species has always been at its best when facing the unknown." Damien smiled at her response, and Zara felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. First contact protocols 3 weeks into their journey, they received their first direct communication from the ethereals. The message came in the form of complex mathematical equations that, when properly decoded, revealed greetings and basic information about the greeting protocols they would need to follow. Zara worked tirelessly to decode the mathematical language, her pattern recognition skills proving invaluable. As she unraveled the alien communications, she began to understand that the ethereals were far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Their technology wasn't just advanced, it was elegant, seamlessly integrating with natural forces in ways that human science was only beginning to comprehend. "They're not just intelligent," she told Damien one night after a particularly intensive decoding session. "They're wise. Their entire civilization seems built around harmony with each other, with their environment, with the fundamental forces of the universe. Which makes our role even more critical," Damien replied. "If they're as advanced as you suggest, they could easily dismiss us as primitive. We need to show them that humanity has something valuable to offer." As they drew closer to ethereal space, the communications became more frequent and more complex. Zara found herself serving as the primary interpreter, her intuitive understanding of alien mathematics making her indispensable to the mission. Damien increasingly relied on her insights, and she began to realize that their partnership was becoming something deeper than either of them had anticipated. The ethereal homeworld. When they finally reached the ethereal homeworld, Zara pressed her face against the viewport in wonder. The planet was unlike anything she had ever imagined, a world where nature and technology existed in perfect harmony. Cities that looked like living organisms stretched across continents, their structures growing from the earth itself rather than being imposed upon it. The ethereals themselves were beings of incredible beauty and grace. Tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light, they moved with a fluid elegance that spoke of thousands of years of peaceful evolution. Their large, dark eyes held depths of wisdom that made Zara feel like a child in their presence. The greeting ceremony took place in a vast chamber that appeared to be carved from a single crystal. The ethereal leader, who introduced herself through harmonic tones that somehow translated directly into understanding, welcomed the human delegation with formal courtesy. But it was clear that the real attention was focused on Damien and Zara. As a bonded pair, the ethereals studied them with intense interest, their alien senses apparently capable of detecting the growing connection between the two humans. Love among the stars. During their stay on the ethereal homeworld, Zara and Damien attended countless meetings, ceremonies, and cultural exchanges. The aliens were fascinated by human bonding rituals and asked detailed questions about marriage, love, and emotional connections. Zara found herself describing feelings and experiences that felt increasingly real as the days passed. One evening, after a particularly intense negotiation session, Damien found Zara on the observation deck of their diplomatic quarters, staring out at the alien stars. "Difficult day?" he asked, moving to stand beside her. "Enlightening day," she replied. "I've learned so much about them, but also about us, about what it means to be human." Damien was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Zara, I need to tell you something. This arrangement between us has become more than I expected." She turned to face him, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" "Mean that what started as a business arrangement has become something real. Somewhere between the wedding and now, I've fallen in love with my wife." The words hung in the air between them, charged with possibility and fear. Zara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "Damien, you don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I know this wasn't part of our agreement. I just needed you to know." But Zara stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. "I was going to say that I love you too. Despite everything, despite how this started, what I feel for you is real." The diplomatic triumph, their genuine love for each other, proved to be exactly what the negotiations needed. The Ethereals, with their ability to sense emotional truth, recognized the authentic bond between the human delegates. This recognition opened doors that had previously been closed, leading to agreements that exceeded humanity's most optimistic expectations. The Ethereals agreed to share selected technologies that would help humanity address climate change, disease, and resource scarcity. In exchange, humans would provide cultural perspectives and creative approaches that the overly logical Ethereals found fascinating. A framework for ongoing cooperation was established, with regular exchanges of knowledge and personnel. But perhaps, most importantly, humanity was accepted as a junior member of the Galactic Confederation, opening up possibilities for contact with dozens of other alien species as their mission drew to a close. Zara and Damien stood together in the crystal chamber where they had first been welcomed. The ethereal leader approached them, her harmonious tones conveying warmth and approval. "Your bonding has been observed and found to be genuine," she communicated. "It serves as a bridge between our species, showing us that humans are capable of the emotional depth necessary for true partnership among the stars." Return to Earth's a journey home was different from their outward voyage, where before they had been two people learning to work together, now they were truly partners in every sense. The marriage that had begun as a contract had evolved into something beautiful and lasting. Zara's mother made a full recovery, the advanced ethereal medical knowledge providing treatments that human science hadn't yet developed. The signing bonus and marriage settlement meant that both women would never want for anything again. But more than the financial security or the successful diplomatic mission, Zara had found something she hadn't expected when she walked into Damien's office with her resignation letter. She had found love among the stars, a partner who shared her dreams of exploration and discovery. As the new horizons approached Earth, Damien took her hand and pointed toward their home planet, beautiful and blue against the black of space. "Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Cross?" he asked. Zara smiled, thinking of all the possibilities that lay ahead. More alien worlds to explore, new technologies to understand, and a lifetime of partnership with the man she loved. Cross. Always. Their marriage had begun with a desperate decision and a shocking proposal. But it had become something that would change not just their lives, but the entire future of humanity among the stars. Love, it seemed, truly was the universal language